What up? What up? What up? It's Cuff with the Vision Lab podcast alongside my main man Mo. We have the Vision Lab podcast short. Yo Mo, who we got on the show today?
Cuff, today's guest is a native of Ohio, but soon to be a resident of Mexico, as we just found out. We're going to talk about yoga and all kind of fun stuff. Please welcome Dakota Mays to the Vision Lab podcast.
Namaste.
Yeah, namaste. Thank you for
Absolutely, my friend. Hey, thank you, brother, for jumping into the lab with us. We are certainly honored to have you. So let's start with Namaste, right? Like that's the thing that everybody kind of knows. So what does Namaste mean, and is that did we use it in the right setting?
yeah, totally. You just greeted me with it. So it's just like saying you honor each other, you respect one another and you see like the divine in each other. It means a lot of different things, but mainly respect. It's like I respect you and I respect you for respecting me. It's a good way to put namaste. Yeah.
Then Namaste all day, brother.
Yeah. You- Yeah, you can say at the beginning of a conversation, but usually people end things with it. When you're leaving out like, thank you, I respect you for sharing your time with me. It's like one of those
Yeah.
things.
For sure, for sure. So I wanted to have you on, and obviously we're honored to have you on the show here. We're middle of 2022. A lot's gone on. I know, typically most people kind of come into the new year, right? Saying, hey, I'm going to reset this. I'm going to redo this. I'm going to change this. I'm going to get back and realign myself with my goals and my visions, right? And so I thought it would be apropos for us to have you on the show to kind of talk about yoga and how we can get recentered as we're slightly above or beyond the halfway mark of the year. So why don't you kind of talk about what yoga is and how we, center ourselves through the practice of yoga?
That's a great question, man. At the end of the day, yoga just means union and connection. So it could be the simplest things, if I'm being honest with you, dude. It could be just you just like connecting with yourself for a second, like sitting up in the morning. Like, you know what I mean? That's like considered yoga. Like most people in the Western world, especially, we just view yoga as these asanas and these postures. But really, the postures are just to keep you and your body in check so you can have those deeper, like, energy rising, experiences in your body. But asana is just like one of those limbs of yoga. It's like one little slither of like the, yoga as a whole. Does that make sense? How I'm trying to
Yeah,
explain?
100%. And I think a lot of times there's this misnomer that you've got to get in these weird
No.
positions and hold them for, a certain amount of time. And I think that, a lot of times scares people off from actually trying to practice yoga. But I'm glad you kind of touched on that, like, it's greater than that. It's about your inner being and kind of growing from within. What are some examples of practices where our visionaries that are tuning in? By the way, if you like the content that you're hearing thus far, go ahead and like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. But what are some ways that people can actually start to begin their yoga practice where they're not getting so involved in all these different movements and hard things that they may believe is hard?
Yeah, so that's another good question. So, being practical, there's this thing called Ashtanga yoga, which really means the eight limbs of yoga. So, there's eight steps. I'm not going to go into each step. I'll just kind of summarize how you can get all the steps in just a few things. It starts with being a good person. Be a good person to yourself and how you treat yourself, and how are externally a good person. So, being a good person to everyone else. You know,
Love that.
that's one and two step right there. Once you get that down, then you can go into your physical asana practice, which is your postures. So if you're waking up in the morning, how can you be nicer to yourself? How can you be nicer, externally for that day and like set your mood going forward? So really just setting an intention as being a good person. That's where you start with yoga. And then if you move into the physical practice, you could do a couple, up dog, down dogs in the mornings, or if it's just a child pose, breathing into the stomach, something so relaxing, so easy that you can put into your morning routine. I would do that like yesterday. I would do it
Okay.
immediately. So yeah, be a good person to yourself and others. Do some asana practice, and then you can move into breath work. So if you really want to take that step further, do some belly breathing, like simple belly breathing. You can do some 3-part breathing, and you can look this up on YouTube, which is just inhaling into the stomach, lower chest, then your upper chest, followed by a smooth exhale. You can do rounds of that just to kind of like disrupt your normal patterns of breathing. Any way you can do that is great. It's, that's you taking in control of your autonomous nervous system. So, autonomic nervous system. So, you just kind of like, can set how you can have breath work to, energize you, you bring vitality to you, you can have breath work to calm you down. So the calming, of
Wow.
course, slow breathing, your breath retention, your holds and stuff like that, very slow and relaxed. Your energizing breath works more like your Wim Hof, like your hyperventilative breath work, like you could do that stuff. Like teach their own. I do different stuff every morning, but usually I
I
do the
love
vital.
that.
Yeah. So breath work is the next realm. So start to like tinker around in the breath work after that. You get your asanas, then your breath work, and like it doesn't have to be insane. So again, you could do the most relaxing, the most, you could do square breathing. Actually, I would recommend this to anyone watching, just to bring you like centering you in. Not really energizing you, not really bringing you down, but just like locking you in is called square breathing. So you can inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. That's one round. You can do 3 to 20 rounds of that. You'll be feeling great. It just like locks you in that baseline. It's a good one to
What
start with.
are I love this the square breathing as a very introductory phase to yoga. Um, and I know Mo has something to say here, but I want to ask, what are the benefits, of yoga and how, the correct breathing, correct posturing, correct, stretching, and how does that benefit us intrinsically and externally?
Another great question. So I'll just start with what I was doing before. I started with being a good person to yourself and others. That is going to make your stress levels plummet down. So that right there, if you're just nicer to yourself, you're already going to bring your nervous system to a happy place. And then if you move into the physical asanas, again, every asana pretty much has a reason behind it. So for instance, up dog, it opens up your chest. It, open like activates the front body a lot. That's supposed it's going to wake you up and make you feel more open. Like the actual pose makes you feel that way and your nervous system feel that way. So at the end of the day, it's a nervous system game. Child pose, you laying in that child pose, you breathing deeply, and maybe child pose is the only thing you do for 5 minutes that day. If you're just deep breathing there, you're reminded of like that single curvature spine when you're a baby. You're reminded of when you're in your mom's womb, like you're all curled in that fetal position. It's just a nice, comfortable pose to relax. So it gives your nervous system that type of vibe. So it's really just like it's all about nervous system game, man. And then your breath work. You're tapping into your automatic nervous system. So it's things that you breathe in your sleep. Your nervous system's doing that for you automatically, right? So when you're awake and you're consciously doing something or manipulating something that you do on a subconscious level, you really tap into your nervous system. So if you want your nervous system to be amped up, you do vitalizing breath work. You want to slow it down, you do slow belly breathing, just longer than 7 seconds. So you can kind of control like what you want, but say you have anxiety attacks. Maybe you don't want to do breath retention or vitalizing breath. That's going to, kind of
Get your heart rate up.
things that you already don't want. You want to do the
Right.
opposite. So does it make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
It, abs-
100%.
it absolutely does. I'm curious, Dakota, like how did you get started into this, right? Like it's not every day, and you're the first person that we've had from the world of yoga on the show. But like how did you get started in this, right? Like it's not like, there's people don't go to college and major in yoga or whatnot. Like how'd you get started and when did you feel like, okay, I'm gonna get really deep in the weeds when it comes to the world of yoga?
Yeah, dude. When I was in college, my girlfriend at the time, she just was like, "Hey, let's do some yoga." And I was already like, I just thought I was like, the physical practices, and like, handstands. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks cool. Like, I work out all the time. It was just another form of physical like exercise for me at first, purely, and then it kind of just stuck. How it does with most people. I kind of realized the benefits it's doing for myself and just me, how I view myself, how my anxiety and stress levels started disappearing. It was just there for me as a practice. So whenever I dropped out of engineering school my junior year, it was just really there for me. And that's where I decided to go to Bali and become a teacher. So it's really
Wow.
practice. And then it turned a little deeper, which this is the story for most people. I just had a lot of respect for it. And then when I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, I was like, might as well get, a yoga teaching certificate. Because even if I don't want to teach, like I'm just deepening my practice and I'm really enjoying this right now. So it was going to be a win no matter what. But I ended up becoming a full teacher after that when I came back. And that was the beginning of 2019.
How far into engineering school were you?
Dude, I'm like 2.5 semesters away from being assistant.
Woo!
Yeah. But I don't even think about it now.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said that I want to tap into, because obviously I think people understand what yoga is for at least on a global level or surface level. But we talk about reducing anxiety and reducing stresses, right? And as I mentioned before at the onset of the show, it's kind of the middle of the year, right, or a little bit after. um, and a lot of people are kind of looking at where they are against their goals and how they're measuring up. So do you yourself, Dakota, I mean, are you experience do you go through anxiety moments and moments of stress or discomfort, and then obviously you have a vehicle that allows you to kind of reset, but I mean, is that something that you go through even through practicing yoga?
Yeah, man, if I'm being honest, I've never had a real big anxiety problem at all. Like, when you hear stories about other people, like I've had my worst moments induced on me. It was from drugs though. So I've only had intense negative experiences whenever it's like, self-induced for sure. But in terms of regular life, I just had like your most common stressors, like, what I mean, just like a subtle anxiety that's kind of lingering. But then when I did these practices, I was like, oh wow, I feel good. Like I feel like you didn't know you had a little bit of anxiety until it falls off your shoulder, and you're just feeling a little bit better. Like life's like brighter, it's more fun. So I never really went from like a serious problem, like in any sort of like we put words on it, like anxiety disorder or stress disorder or anything like that. It was just mild stresses, but it just like completely vanished. So for someone with deep, stress in their life or deep anxiety, this is a practice where I would just start implementing the smallest things immediately in your morning routine. I say morning because that's how you start your day, of course. But if nightly routine works for you best, maybe that's what teach their own, but just develop some sort of routine to where you're nicer to yourself, which helps you be nice to other people. You do a little bit of practice with their asanas, and I just mean postures. And they could be anything. You look up on YouTube, Instagram, there's a million different routines you can do, tons of different instructors that are great. Just find something that's simple, works with you, and then add a little breath work to it, and then boom. Like you got a deeper yoga practice than 90% of the world right there.
Hey, so you mentioned social media, right? Um, I would be remiss if we didn't actually give you the opportunity to drop your social media handles for any visionary that's out there that wants to support you or learn more about you and your practice and what you're doing. Can you want to drop your social media handles and how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's at Mays Yoga on everything. Mays Yoga. Uh, I drop tips every day almost. Yeah, usually every day I'm dropping 3 or 4 videos. I just give movement tips, things to help with your posture, things to help with like common pains in the body. And as I said with the whole beginning of your yoga practice, it's the best benefits come from the most simple poses, the most simple routines. So don't think it has to be fancy. It doesn't have to be any crazy back bending or handstanding. It could be whatever. And a lot of times, breath work is going to be the best benefit for most people. Just adding a breath work to your daily routine, something to either bring you up in energy levels or bring you down, or both.
Love it, love it. So visionaries, make sure you go support and follow Maze Yoga.
So Dakota, it's the entire underlying theme of our show is having a growth mindset, right? And so all of our listeners are always looking for tips to quote unquote get to the next level and whatever their pursuits might be, right? Can you talk about how yoga has helped promote the growth mindset for you internally, and then can you also talk about how like not even the physical benefits, but just like overall like the benefits of yoga on a person's mindset is because we're always looking to grow, we're always looking to improve. I just want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. And in terms of a growth mindset, yoga is like I couldn't imagine myself without yoga. I'm not kidding, man. Every morning I wake up, I do my little morning routine, little yoga routine. I feel like running through a brick wall. Like in terms of what it does to me as a person and just like my energy levels and just again, I think yoga, the word union connection, it just helps you connect with yourself. It makes you feel more confident. It makes you feel all the good things that we all talk about, and just we all know what being happy feels like, and it just usually that connection with yourself just makes you happy. So being able to grow as a person, like growth mindset, like that's just like a gimme after you do that basic work with yourself, because a lot of people are just neglecting their inner work. They're neglecting a lot of whether that's past traumas or whatever it is they haven't worked through that's messing them up in the relationships in their lives. because I see it all the time. Like I see it literally all the time. So I
Yep.
can't imagine myself right now without a yoga practice in terms of growing, because it would just help me in a lot of my spiritual growth. And that's where most of our external,
Well,
3D growth,
it,
right?
it's
It's
interesting. It's interesting because you're about to make this big leap in your life, right? Like right before we turned on the hit the record button. You said you're getting ready to move. So how does a guy born and raised in Ohio and 2 semesters short of finishing an engineering degree, now you're a yoga instructor, and now you decide to move to Mexico? Like, can you talk about what led to that? I mean, obviously that's a major lifestyle change.
Yeah. What led to it was yoga, man. I'm just sharing my practice and being very authentic. Like I've tried to lifestyle design as much as I can for my daily work. And it just turns out to where now I'm hosting these retreats, and most of them are going to be in Mexico, West Coast. So I'm just like, it makes sense. Me and my ex-girlfriend, we traveled the West Coast, Mexico a bunch, explored a bunch of different beach towns, but Sayulita was just our favorite by far. We've been back like 4 or 5 times. And it's just like, it just made sense. But it was me, following this yoga path and seeing where it would lead me, because a lot of people, like, in terms of making it lucrative and stuff like that, they just can't make it in the yoga realm. They have to get like a, quote unquote real job or a different job or just a side job, whatever that looks like. I'm just blessed it didn't happen to me. I just kept going my guns, like kept working at it. And so it's just, I mean, it makes sense to go to Mexico right now. You know what I mean? Like beautiful scenery. All my content does better with the beautiful scenery too. It's just like more yogis to collaborate with, all the above. So it only makes sense for me to leave my hometown.
life is about growth, right? And so one of the things that I love about you, Dakota, is that you put into practice your practice, right? And you're actually taking that leap of faith. And so, as we kind of get ready to land the plane, what are some misnomers or misconceptions that the quote unquote outer world has on yoga that's not necessarily true?
I would say the main thing we touched on earlier is that a lot of people just view yoga as this physical practice, the asanas and the postures. It's really so much more than that. That's only one little slither of all the limbs of yoga. So I would just say that's the biggest misconception, is to like, again, I just keep coming back to it. And I'm sure you guys didn't expect me to say it, but number one step in yoga is like start being nicer to yourself and others. You're not going to
I
feel
love
better.
it.
Like, you're walking by someone, you just like share a smile or something like that. You feel a little human connection. That just makes you feel whole and connected with like, everything around you. So the whole interconnectedness of everything, that's what yoga is about. Like that, not only feeling union with yourself, like me feeling like, you're my brother, like you could be my dad in another life. Like we're just like more connected than just two strangers. And you're not like, I feel that connection the most after a yoga class, after I'm leaving Shavas, and I'm just like so thankful for the people around me. So yeah, the biggest misconception is that it's just a physical practice to get you ripped, make you look like, like a yoked yogi. Like it will do that. You want that, like you can get jacked all you want in yoga, do ashtanga, do physical practice, you can have that. But the biggest misconception is that you need a hardcore physical practice like that to be like the most astounding yogi, like when it's all internal and in a state of mind.
Yeah, I love it. State of mind, Mo. State of mind. Well,
Sounds like
listen,
a
this
closing
has been,
episode.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Dakota, I want to do something, Mo. If it's cool with you, man, I'd love to have you back on the show, a full episode. And I want to challenge myself. I want to challenge Mo to get involved, and let's do an actual yoga practice with you for half of the show. Would you be down to come back on in maybe a month or so?
That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Mo, Mo, you good to get on a yoga mat and do some downward dog and all that fun stuff?
See, I know where you're going, right? But see, a good friend of mine, Miss Brittany Reddick Wald, used to run a yoga and Pilates class back on the rooftop at the W a few years ago. So I'm very familiar with yoga mats, homeboy.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, no, no, no shade, no shade. Listen, I've done yoga with my wife, right? But let's get into it. So Dakota, we'd love to extend an olive branch to you, brother. Let's get you back on the show, and let's just go through a practice and ask some additional questions surrounding growth mindset. Would you be down for that?
Let's do it. I'm so down.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, thank you very much, brother, for jumping into the lab with us. This has been absolutely outstanding. I, for one, am leaving enriched and actually wanting more. So I'm excited about maybe a round two and actually diving in deeper to growth mindset and yoga and how those two, parallel or cross over.
Heck yeah, man. I hope the information was fun. I only got to dive into a few, 3 or 4 of those limbs of the 8 limbs, so we could dive into the rest next time. Heck yeah.
Man, Dakota, this has been really, really great. We appreciate you hopping on with us. Also the power of social media. Thank you for being somebody who actually answers DMs and all that good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Mosley. My co-host is Ryan Cuffey. Thank you again to our guest, Dakota Mays. Mays Yoga, everything on social media. And we'll see you guys next week on another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast.
Appreciate it, y'all.
Namaste.